Before we begin, let us take a moment to bring our palms together in veneration. Our teacher, our master, he who found the meaning of our lives. He showed us a path to free ourselves from all the sufferings, all the defilements. Reminding ourselves the nobleness of our teacher. Let's bring our palms together in veneration, the Supreme Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Everyone. Hope you all are doing well and practicing the path to attain Nibbana. This is something everybody should have in your minds, in their minds, because, ladies and gentlemen, what we are trying to traverse right now is something that we never done this project. Throughout our journey of samsara, we haven't achieved Arihatun Hanse, enlightenment. That's the only thing that we haven't achieved. All the other things that we have achieved so far, like everybody in this world achieved, we achieved them. For example, today you might not be a doctor, right? But you had you were a doctor in previous lives. How many times? Millions times. But you don't know that. Today you might not have a PhD. It doesn't matter, right? Because you have achieved that before. Today, sometimes you might not have gone to some places that you wish to go, but don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. You have been there before. You had been there before, but now you don't remember that you were there. This is exactly what happened. This is the nature of this trap. This is the nature of this maze. All these living beings in this world, they're trapped. They're trapped in a sansaric cycle, but nobody knows that they are trapped. That's why Buddha is an extraordinary person. Buddha is an extraordinary character, because of that he found by himself that the depth of this trap, that how we can escape from it, and he cracked the code. He showed us a way to escape from this deep rabbit hole, how to come out of it. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, you need to have this idea about the Buddha and how, like, what is the value of the Buddha. I'm not talking about the Buddha as a person, ladies and gentlemen. I'm talking about the Buddha as the wisdom. It's like Thomas Alva Edison found the way to, like, he invented the light bulb. That knowledge, that wisdom that he experienced, he found. I'm talking about something like that. Buddha means the wisdom in this world, ladies and gentlemen. Buddha means the reality. Buddha means what actually happens here. Buddha means the truth. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, I can't imagine that after, like, 33, 35 years spending my life in a lay life as a normal, like you, like living being, and enjoying the worldly, like, senses, and indulge in pleasure and everything. I had everything. But I can't imagine right now we are practicing a path that we haven't achieved. We never gone through this path. We haven't. This is the first time we try to we go through this path. This is our first experience. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, we need a teacher. That's why you need to have a teacher to follow that guideline. Otherwise, you don't know what to do and what not to do. That's why Buddha showed us, like Buddha, when he found this Dhamma, when he found the truth, then he showed us, okay, this is what you have to do, this is what we don't have to do. But the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, when you read those things from a book, you won't be able to grasp what actually Buddha meant by saying these things, because this is completely different language. When it comes to the realization, ladies and gentlemen, it completely different to the language that we discuss. That's why it's really hard to explain what we experience using words. Words, as always, I'm telling you, words dilute the meaning. Words dilute the meaning of actually the experience. The other day, I was talking with Swami Nuhanse, one of our colleague monk, and he asked me, like, Swami Nuhanse, remember, 6 months ago, when we had a chat with him, I explained some concept to him, and he told me that today he understand more deeper and deeper, but when he tried to explain that, he uses the same words that I explained to him, because he told me that he can't use any other words other than that to express that idea. But the thing is, like he knows that 100%, he's sure about that. Earlier, when I explained that concept to him, he understood from the scratch. It's not deep, but when you practice the path, when you try to realize it slowly and slowly by following the teacher, by embedding in the Dhamma, the nature environment, right? In that case, slowly and slowly you will start to realize more deeper aspects, concept, like deeper, like aspects of that same Dhamma, the stanza, okay, or the concept that we discussed. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, that don't ever think that, okay, don't come to uh, 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 like a stage that, okay, I have realized this, I have done. Don't come to that thinking, like the judgment, because even I think when you become an Arihatun, when you become an enlightened one, ladies and gentlemen, still you will, when you discuss the Dhamma, when you discuss things in the world, you will understand more clear. It will get more clearer and clearer. But the thing is, now you don't have defilements, but it gets more clearer. So that's why, ladies and gentlemen, what we have to do is we need to get rid of our defilements. I still remember those days when we didn't actually, ladies and gentlemen, we didn't know what are defilements. We thought, like I think I told you yesterday, single sermon as well. Those days with my late time wife, we get together and we have a pizza, and we keep the pizza in front of us, and we try to, like, we try to think, by looking at the pizza without eating, we try to stop secreting saliva. Like, if we have saliva in our mouth, we think, okay, now we have the defilement. We thought that is the defilement. That happens because of the defilement, right? We try to stop it. I mean, when we fail, when later we had it, this is what happened, right? Okay, we fail. Let's eat it. So that's what happened. So those days, I didn't have an idea what are these defilements. What is this defilement means? It's like when we think about, people are talking about this, here you have defilements, you have this the ignorance and attachment. Because of that, raga, desha, moha, aversion, delusion, craving happens. So you need to stop craving, you need to stop attachment. So in order to do that, so what we have to do? So bring up, we brought a pizza, we kept in front of us, and right, stop attaching to a pizza. How to do that? What is the parameter to check how to not attaching to a pizza? So we have to eat a pizza because of our hunger. At the same time, not to attach to a pizza. How can you do that? This was our experiment, and I still remember we were trying to stop our because we both were scientists, so we need a parameter, we need something, what you call meter, to check whether our defilements are there or not. So parameter that we use to check whether defilements are there or not is our saliva. With the saliva, when we feel saliva in the mouth, okay, we think, okay, now defilements are there. Ladies and gentlemen, this is completely darkness within darkness. No idea what actually happened to us. But anyway, we have heard that there's a problem with us. That's why we try to find the problem. Now, ladies and gentlemen, because of the teachers, because of the Dhamma, because of the profound wisdom that we listen from our teachers, slowly and slowly we start to realize that the defilements are this. It's not about the pizza, ladies and gentlemen. Defilement is completely different from the pizza. Actually, ladies and gentlemen, you don't attach to a pizza. That's the funny thing. Everybody talks about, I have attachment to a this, I have attachment to a that, I have attachment to this food, I like that, I love this. Ladies and gentlemen, if it is a trap, right? If this sansaric cycle is a trap, whatever the decisions, whatever the judgment that you are taking, always should favor the trap, isn't it? When you take a decision, if it is against the trap, that means it's not supporting for trapping. It's support for like come out from the trap, right? If that decision is supporting to come out from the trap, that is not a perfect trap. Perfect trap means the person who trapped in there does not know that he is trapped. Then he doesn't even think about how to come out of it. That's the characteristic of a perfect trap. This world is something like that. Whatever the experiences that you experience day by day, it's a trap, ladies and gentlemen. Your eye is a trap. Your ear is a trap. Your nose is a trap. Your tongue is a trap. Your skin, whatever the tactile sensation you receive from there, is a trap. And your mind is it's a mother or the father of all the traps. These are the agent of this trap. But the thing is, decisions that you have taken so far, you have used mind to take the decisions, isn't it? Right? So you have used mind to take the decision. Your mind is taking the decision because that mind was a offspring. The or mind is supporting for ignorance. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, Buddha has told us your Mara. The Mara means Mara against the Buddha, right? Mara is actually not in the outside. Mara concept is actually resides within you, not in the outside world. When you try to follow this path, ladies and gentlemen, Buddha and Mara, the war between Buddha and Mara happens not in the outside. If you read this, I don't know whether you are familiar with this Buddhist, the literature. They explain there's a fight between Buddha and Mara. But actually, that fight didn't happen in the outside, ladies and gentlemen. That fight happens in the each and every individual living being who try to attain Nibbana, in each and every living being. That fight is against your defilement. That fight happens within your mind. Your mind is fighting against your mind. Have you seen Pirates of the Caribbean? There's a scene that Jack Sparrow. There were two little Jack Sparrows on the side of this arms, talking to the main Jack Sparrow. No, no, don't go there. No, go there, go there. It's good. There are two characters here, and they talk to the main Jack Sparrow. Right? This is exactly what happens when you practice this path. The bad Jack Sparrow, Mara Jack Sparrow, and the Buddha Jack Sparrow. So no, you shouldn't say like that. But Buddha and Mara, that is the war that happens in the mind. Not the Buddha Jack Sparrow and Mara Jack Sparrow, but that is the war that happens in the mind. Because when you come to a teacher, when you understand this Dhamma first time, the first time your mind start to realize there's a Buddha within yourself. The mind start to find, there's something extraordinary, something other than I was thinking here. But the thing is, even though you start fighting with the Buddha, now the thing is, even though mind realizes, okay, this is the way, but mind was hijacked, mind was invaded by what? The Mara concept. That means ignorance. As a result of that, mind cannot come out quickly, easily, because it's inside that trap. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, Buddha and Mara fight happens within your mind right now, even now. When you listen to this Dhamma, that fight happens within your mind. This is against your own decisions. Now, moving back to what I was telling. Now tell me, ladies and gentlemen, when you say, like, if this is a trap, whatever the decision that you have taken without the support from a teacher, all the decisions should have supported to trap in more, like to tighten the trap, to tighten the knot. That's why when people say attachment, they know that they are attaching to things, right? So that's why when you think about the attachment, you in your mind, you have an idea. I have attachment to that thing, this thing, that thing. I love that. I love to do this. I have an attachment to that. When Buddha said Tanhaya Jayati Soko, Tanhaya Jayati Bhayan, Tanhaya Vipamuttasa Nati Soko, Kuto Bhayan. Right? Because of the attachment, fear happens. Because of the attachment, suffering happens. When there's no attachment, there's no fear, there's no suffering. That's the meaning of that stanza. But the thing is, when Buddha is explaining attachment, we also know an attachment. That is the attachment to things. That is the attachment to our kids. That is the attachment to our mother, father, people, everyone, your loved ones. Ladies and gentlemen, when you come to a judgment, okay, that is the attachment I need to get rid of. That is the attachment I need to take out of my life. Then you are still in the trap of the Mara. This is so funny, ladies and gentlemen. It's not the attachment to things. It's not the attachment to people. It's not the attachment to experiences. But ladies and gentlemen, there's a hidden attachment within the mind that is underneath, that is buried, that is sublime attachment. That is the attachment to experience entity. Experience an individual, separated, living being. There's an attachment, ladies and gentlemen. That attachment is there to experience a special, unique things. But the thing is, you have no idea that attachment is there or not, because that becomes your norm. That is your that is your bread and butter. That is the way you think. That is the way you feel. That is the way you experience the world. When you look at this, do you have anything? Can you see piece of paper? Ladies and gentlemen, when you look at this, you automatically judge. How do you judge? There's a piece of paper, A4 sheet, not A5. A5? Yes. Is it A5 size? Okay. A5, see, it's for me, A5. Do you know it's A4 or A5? Can you judge looking at this? Huh? No, 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 you can't. When I say, okay, you have to accept, agree with that. You have to agree with that. Okay, this is A5. So yes, so this is A4 sheet, right? You come to a judgment, that's an A4 sheet. Swaminwas is holding an A4 sheet. So we are looking at that. You know, that that experience, that feeling, that thought, that experience that generated within your mind is defiled. Yes. In order to generate that experience, there's an attachment, ladies and gentlemen. That is not your attachment. That is the attachment creates you and the A4 sheet. It's attachment comes before you and the A4 sheet, ladies and gentlemen. A4 sheet and the you is a result, a product from the attachment. Ladies and gentlemen, now think about this. Mind is a mind. Mind is a process. Mind is not you. Mind is not an A4 sheet. Mind is actually doing its job. What is the job? Perception, experiencing business, detailing out. Like I'm trying to get this experience, my feelings come out from my mind, right? Mind's job is mind is a commentator. Commentator. Is it the right word? Commentator. It's details out. It's not something, mind is not something that's there. It's not a detector. It's not an entity. It's a process of giving an experience. Mind is not an entity. Mind itself is a process. Each and every split second, mind is a process. Mind is a process means you can't say this mind and that mind, because which mind? Let's say there's a chocolate factory. The chocolate factory is producing chocolate. Can you say this moment chocolate factory is equal to the next moment chocolate factory? Can be referred to as a chocolate factory, but is that chocolate factory is the same factory? All the components that exist, like that exist in the factory, is it the same thing? Or because there's a process, you can't say it's the same factory because process happens. For example, if there's a river, you can't say there's a river. I mean, you will, ladies and gentlemen, as a reference, you can say there. Try to understand this, huh? You, as a reference, you can say there's a river. But is that the same river that you have seen just before, or that river is always flowing? Always flowing. Is that the same water that exists in the river, or each and every moment river flows? Because of that, actually, you can't separate out and you can't define this must be the river. Does this make sense? You can't define that this is the river. You can't say this is the river because river is not the same. I mean, whatever the components that they are in the river is not the same. In each and every moment, water flows. Amount of the water molecules that flows in this moment is not the same water molecules that flows in the next moment. If that is the case, we can refer as a river, but there's no river in the river. We can refer as a river, but there's no river in the river because there's no fixed entity called river exists if there's a flow. Waterfall. If it is waterfall, waterfall is always water. Water is falling. Water moves. Water always falling. There's a flow. If there's a waterfall, water flows, right? Water falls. Okay, waterfalls. How can you say there's a waterfall? I like that waterfall. Which moment waterfall is that you are referring to? Because you can't isolate an entity if there's a flow. Does this make sense? Hmm? Hmm. Now think about it that waterfalls, you can't say there's a waterfall because it flows. It flows or it's continuously flowing. Right. Accepted. Imagine, I'm not talking about I here. Now let's come to the mind. Can you say, because mind's job is recognition process, recognizing. It's a process of recognition. It's a process of detailing out. It's a process of interpreting whatever the colors, sound, smell, taste, touch, thought that appear, right? That appear in the base of the mind. The mind's process is that so mind's duty. We can't say mind's duty. You know why? Because when we talk about mind's duty, we personify, we identify the mind and we talk about it. So that's why it has to go beyond that, right? It's not mind's duty. That is the mind. We can't say the river's duty is to flow water. Like river's duty. Can you say like that? No. Right? Waterfall's duty is to fall like the waterfall, right?
Yes, the
You
river
can't say
flows.
like that. The river flows, the mind cognizes. The process of cognition, process of recognition, process of experiencing, generating experiences, that is the mind.
Correct.
So in that point of view, ladies and gentlemen, we can't say there's a fixed mind exists because mind is a flow of consciousness. Now, this is where the problem starts. Today I don't have my hand pen tool, and like I try to do like this. Another thing is, ladies and gentlemen, this mind, the process of the mind, right? The mind itself is a process. So there's no, you can't say entity in the mind. But when I show this to you, in your perception, you experiences an entity called you is looking or watching at this A4 sheet that I'm showing to you. This is, ladies and gentlemen, this is the world wide web of delusion. This is WWWD. Because, ladies and gentlemen, this whole, like, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, what I have to say is start contemplating, ladies and gentlemen. You will understand this. You will be very ashamed about what you have done in the past. Thinking about these are things that exist in the outside and going running behind them, and that's why you don't have to stop attachment to them. Things, ladies and gentlemen, when you realize what you have done, my goodness, you will stop everything what you have been doing. And self is the biggest deception. That's why when you say I, that's the deception. So deception, that is the deception, right? Okay, now think, start to think in this line of thoughts. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what happens here? Mind always, mind always receives color, sight, sound, taste, smell, touch, thought. These are the mind's starting points. It's not mind starting point. That is the starting point of the process. That is the, like in a chocolate factory, you have to bring cocoa powder and then sugar, what else? Milk and oil, and you have to mix them, boil them, evaporate them, and put it into the molds, and that's how you bring the chocolate. Ready? Imagine in this chocolate factory, you are the observer. It's a black box. It's a chocolate factory that we don't know what actually happens in the chocolate factory. We know for sure color, cocoa powder, water, oil, sugar, and what else? Milk are the inputs. It's a black box. We know the inputs. You are at the gate, at the edge of the chocolate factory. You're observing just a product of chocolate is releasing from that factory. It releases, right? So you are the observer. You are now watching at the end of the factory, the production. At the end of the production, there's a belt and chocolate is coming out from the factory. Inside is hidden. Inside is, you don't know what actually happens. You have an idea that these are the things that you have input. These are the inputs. These are the ingredients. Got it? Hmm? Hmm. This is exactly what happened to you, right? Ladies and gentlemen, right now, ladies and gentlemen, right? I'm talking about the deepest concepts. I don't know whether you will understand. I will tell. Huh? Right now, you are at the edge of the world. That means the edge of the chocolate factory. You means right now, what you experience right now, as Swami Nuance is talking to you, that is the edge of the factory. You can't see the black box inside. You don't know what actually happens in the black box. From somewhere you have heard that sight, sound, color, taste, smell, touch, these are the ingredients, these are the raw materials for the minding process. At the edge of the factory, the minding factory, there's a consciousness that is the product. Consciousness means what? Consciousness means what you experience right now. See, you're conscious, you're aware about the world, right? You feel. Don't you feel things? You become the end chocolate factor. Chocolate. How can you say? You are the you are the chocolate that comes out from the factory, right? Don't you are not the observer. You are the chocolate that comes out of the factory, right? When it comes out from that black box, you feel, yes, I am. This is exactly what happened to you right now. Right now, each and every split second, consciousness is actually generating. But the thing is that the consciousness is not a product, it always manifesting, it always generating. As a result of that, there's no gaps, there's no blackout. It is continuously appearing. It's like there's a chocolate factory. There's no there's no gaps between two products. Continuously chocolate is coming out. Imagine such kind of activity, right? Imagine there's the edge. There's a the line. In that line, always there's a under the belt. You have the chocolate is coming out. You are that line. You are the line, right? Each and every moment, there's a chocolate that is passing on that line. Okay. Okay. Right? Right? Something like that. It's really hard to give this example. I don't know whether it is whether it matches with this idea. Something like that happens right now, ladies and gentlemen. each and every moment, consciousness is producing. That is the end product. That is the product of the mind. Actually, you can't say a product because it's not something done. It's a flow. Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. So when we come to the minding process, remember we discuss RV, SSV.
Yes.
Actually, ladies and gentlemen, you can't understand what is Rupa. You don't feel it. You don't feel Vedana, Sanya, Sankara. Actually, what you experience right now, it's the Vijnana Kanda. That means aggregation of Vijnana. Aggregation of Vijnana. That means aggregation of your consciousness is an aggregation. Right now, you feel things. Your feelings are not feeling one feeling. Your feeling has millions of components. Right now, when you recognize Swami Wahanse, remember, like, think about this, right? You recognize Swami Wahanse, right? Mahinda Thera. You recognize, isn't it? Don't you recognize me? You recognize, right? You recognize me. In that recognition, this moment, in that recognition, you have millions of data collectively appear in that experience. Colors, voice, memories, all these data exist in that experience. But the thing is, aggregation process, you don't feel it. You don't sense this aggregation process because that is the black box part. The moment you don't feel that you are aggregating. Just I'm asking, when I say hello, right? You felt it as hello, isn't it? Together. But actually, in the mind, hello, it creates all the fragments of hello, lo, 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 lo. All these fragments collectively perceive as hello, isn't it?
Correct.
But the thing is the collection, the collecting part, receiving and sensing and checking with the data and all these things, you don't feel it, you don't sense it, you can't experience it because that is the process that happens in the black box. Remember the black box, black box chocolate factory, the black color, the sorry, black box part in the chocolate factory. You don't know what actually happens there. Memories are there, colors are there, sight, sound, taste, smell, everything is there, right? That's why, ladies and gentlemen, when there's water vapor dispersed, you don't experience a cloud. But when these water vapors aggregated, you start to feel it as a cloud. Similarly, feeling itself is also an aggregation of whatever the small fragments of memories, fragments of colors, fragments of data that appear in the mind. But the thing is that end product is not an end product because that also disperse in the next moment. But you are the line always. What you experience right now is an experiencing process. You can't isolate this experience and that experience because it's not it's not something, there's no gaps between this.
Yes, I know.
That's exactly like, that's why, ladies and gentlemen, in a candle flame, you can see continuously flame exist because that is your experience. In a candle flame, go and, I mean, light up a candle, light up a candle flame and look at that. You will understand what I'm telling you, right? In a candle flame, whatever the wax molecules, oxygen molecules, or thermal energy come together, burns. There's something going on. There's an exchange of energy. There's an exchange of bonds. Bonds being rearranging. There's a process. Energy conversion process happens. That is not the flame, ladies and gentlemen. Because of that energy conversion, there's an effect that appear in the mind These are the colors, small color fragments. These color fragments generate the perception of flame. Actually, there's no gaps between. Do you feel flame is there and not there, there and not there, there? Is it like that experience you feel, or continuously flame is like solid? Ah, that's your experience, ladies and gentlemen. There's no gaps in your experience because aggregation process always create this aggregation and presenting always.
Yeah.
Do you grasp this? So I don't know whether today is very energetic. I don't know what happened. I'm telling, right? I'm just explaining. Okay. Will there be a flame? Will there be a flame? No, ladies and gentlemen. Without your mind, there's no flame. But there's an energy conversion process there. When your mind is aligned to that process using your senses, not your senses, the sensing business, that alignment creates the picture in the mind.
Appearance.
That is the aggregation what I'm referring to, that you experience as an experience.
Okay.
A collection of energy, and that energy process continuously happens. Even you don't watch it or you look at. Actually, ladies and gentlemen, there's no fixed flame in the mind, there's no fixed flame in the outside world, because that energy conversion is also energy conversion, because there's nothing fixed. It's nothing constant, nothing made. There's a process going on. If that is the case, flame is always flaming, flame is always showing, flame is always not fixed, flame is always keep producing, ladies and gentlemen. That means what you experience as right now, when you look at a flame, that experience, the feeling, whatever the consciousness that arises within your mind, not within your mind, the consciousness that arises is actually not a fixed thing. That's a flow. It always happens. You have to understand. You can't say you're creating, because when realization, when consciousness happens, you don't feel that. I mean, you're not creating, you don't aggregate manually. The aggregation happens. That is the part that happens in the black box. Consciousness means the minding, the total process of the minding, including the black box I'm talking about. Remember the aggregation process. Remember the collecting the memory and collecting all these fragments of colors and all this. You had to collect. It's not something you are doing. You are doing, but it happens. After it happens, after that aggregated, you feel the flame. Not you feel the flame. That is your feeling as a flame. It's an illusion. Your consciousness is an illusionist. It's an illusion. But the thing is that the illusion does not understand, does not know it's an illusion. That's what actually happens here. That's why we entangle it in this ansari trap. I mean, that we experience us is there and exist, and we talk about and we discuss and we chat each other. You are responding, I'm talking to you. All this because experiencing process, right, does not experience a thing. That's why the other day I think I told you, there's no cricket match, but there's a cricket commentary happens. The players are in the house, they don't know that there's a match, but there's a commentator is commenting about a match, but there's no match existing the outside. But because of the energy conversion that happens in the near the candle, right, whatever the wax and oil and thermal energy and all this energy conversion reaction happens, that generates the effect in the mind, not in the mind, that generates the effect. That is the effect, that is the color. That colors are aggregating and creating the perception. That is what you experience as consciousness. You, the thing is, seeing is a process. This is the process of seeing, ladies and gentlemen. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking. These are the processes that actually happens without the object, without the sound, without smell, like without an object, without the object, and without the or subject. The defiled mind means also a process, sir. That is the thing. I mean, you can't say defiled mind. Then we have to we have to cut it and we have to kill this defiled mind. No, because that is also a process. So defiled mind is also a process here, right? Now, what you have to understand is first. Are you like what do you, are you okay? Like, do you understand what I explain as the minding process? Because you don't know, you don't feel that you are collecting. You always feel that you are listening to a song. You always feel you are listening to a talk. You always feel that you are watching a movie. You are looking at a picture. But actually, that picturing process happens in the mind, collecting the data, collecting the memories. That process happens. After that process happens, you feel the feeling. That is what you experience. That is a flow that always generates the feeling. There's no blocks, there's no gaps, there's no like dents or anything, but it continuously happens without any blocks, without any gaps. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what you refer to as you. Remember, this is that experience always there, isn't it? There's no gaps. Even you look at me and look at the outside, look at somewhere, continuously that flow happens. There's no gaps, there's no blocks. The process happens without any without any the gaps, right? This is what we refer to as I. Refer, 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 refer as I. There's no I in the I, ladies and gentlemen. Not I means EYI. I mean I, because there's no river in the river, right? River is a reference to that process. Likewise, the continuous consciousness that experience each and every moment in your life, people refer like conceptually, we refer to that as I. That does not mean, ladies and gentlemen, there's a individual existing being, an entity is there. When you don't know that this is a process, that is why people have given another name for this is Atma in the Hindu text. Parama Atma means At, means one entity there. But there's no entity. You can't refer to as Atma, but there's no, in a mirage, you can see water, but there's no water in the mirage. But there's a process of mirage that shows you water. You are roaming here and there in a conceptual world, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
It's a conceptually okay to say there's Atma, there's I, because it's a concept, because otherwise you can't explain, you can't talk, you can't express the idea. That's why I'm telling you, in a mirage, you have water. Oh, you can see water. In a mirage, you can see water, but there's no water in the mirage.
Yeah.
There's a process of showing water in the mirage. Does this make sense? Process of showing water exists, but there's no water, right? Likewise, mind is generating. Mind is a process that shows things as consciousness. In the consciousness, it shows things, but there are no things, because that thing is exactly looks like mirage.
Correct.
Buddha has, I don't know the English term for this, sanya, the rupa vedana sanya. Sanya means the concepts, perception concepts, like concepts. Like Buddha has asked us to see concepts as a mirage, because concepts are not really exist, they are just concepts. A4 sheet is a concept, ladies and gentlemen, in your mind, in the consciousness. When these color dots appear in the minding process, it collects these color dots and collect the memory bank and put this concept into that consciousness production. So your mind, the product of consciousness, right? That consciousness product contains the concept of A4 sheet. Does this make sense? Ah, that's what you experience as this A4 sheet, ladies and gentlemen. Shall I tell you? This experience is not in here. This experience is right now you. This is you, ladies and gentlemen. See, how are you? How are you? Because this is you. Because the perception happens not in the outside. Perception happens in, that is the mind that you experience. Right now, the consciousness is you. That's why all the world that you have seen, all the universe that you have seen or thought or grasp or conceptualize or think or talks about or learn, these are not in the outside world. This is you. That is why in the ancient textbook it says, Aham Brahmasmi. You are the universe. Ladies and gentlemen, right now, because we are in the learning curve, we are trying to grasp this, right? In the process, in the middle of the process of this grasping this concept, ladies and gentlemen, we have to refer you. Otherwise, you don't happy. Now, minding process happens. Consciousness generates. Agree? You get the point? Consciousness always generates. This consciousness is generating without a subject, without the object. Because of the energy process, energy fluctuations happens. That energy fluctuations is producing an effect of mind, that is your consciousness. That's why when you try to app, like when you come to the application, ladies and gentlemen, what we have to you don't have to go through all these things. You just have to realize this experience you experience right now is not something fixed. It's something like the flame. It's not done. It's always in production. That's why you can see moving motion picture.
Yeah.
Can you see I'm moving here and there? See, that is possible because of what? It is possible because of that consciousness is not something fixed, always in production.
Yeah.
Let's delve deeper. Huh? Are you ready? I don't know whether this is also confusing. I have got now. Now this is the case. Consciousness is actually always generating. It is not one consciousness. You can't say this is the consciousness, because you can't separate the consciousness, because this consciousness, that consciousness, you can't segregate consciousness, because it's a process. There's no fixedness in the consciousness. There's no speciality in the consciousness, because there's no difference in the consciousness. So you can't say this is special consciousness, so that is another special consciousness. You can't say like that, ladies and gentlemen. This is also consciousness. This is also consciousness. This consciousness is not this consciousness, is not this consciousness, is not this consciousness, is not this consciousness, but there's no difference in this consciousness as well. There's no special in this consciousness, there's no special in this consciousness. Vijnana means that is the end, that is the edge of the world, ladies and gentlemen. It's something I can show you. Hmm? There's a shadow, can you see? See, there's a
Yes.
shadow. Uh, right? The shadow is helpless there to understand how this shadow was made, because there's no shadow. We can't say there's a fixed shadow, because each and every moment, because of the light rays, because of the hand, because of the wall, electrons, protons, neutrons are creating what? A program, like a process of shadowing. So shadow is not a fixed entity. Shadow is always in the process of generating. Is my hand as well, right? But the thing is, whatever the shadow that exists, we can't say exists shadow, right? That shadow is helpless to experience how this shadow was built, how this shadow was made, because it is not something exists at all, even for split second.
Right.
In that case, ladies and gentlemen, what you feel right now as this consciousness is also not a, a, a continuous thing, but you can't say it's a different things as well, because it is always in production. So there's no speciality in differences. Ladies and gentlemen, this is, now you have to understand, this is what we call in the Dhamma equanimity. The equanimity within equanimity. Neutral, neutral. Equanimity means upeksha, neutral. There's no difference. There's no fluctuation in your experience. Because there's no value in it. There's no value for special consciousness. Because there's no special in the consciousness, because consciousness is always an experiencing business that generate, because whatever the data in the consciousness is just like mirage, there's no water in the water. Likewise, that data doesn't represent any meaningful thing. Does this make sense? In this consciousness, okay, right now there's a consciousness appear within your mind, Swamin Wahanse. In that consciousness, there's a data of Swamin Wahanse. Agree or not? Thus, but that Swamin Wahanse doesn't exist here, because this is completely energy cloud, is fluctuating energy. There's no, I mean, even you can't even think, right? You don't like to think in that way, ladies and gentlemen. I feel like that now. I don't like to think it that way. You look at you guys, right? How can I see? How can I say that you don't exist? I mean, so that's why this is what I told you, that Buddha Mara fight. When the Buddha comes, Mara says, no, there's someone. Then no, there's no one, because there's an aggregation. No, no, there's someone. Understanding also a process that drives because of the causes. If there are causes to understand this trap, then it will create that effect. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, so there's no controller here, there's no doer here. Natti kammasa karako vipakasya vedako. There's no doer for the karma, there's no receiver for the vipaka. Suddha dhamma pavattanti etesang sammadasana. That is the sammaditi. That is the right view to realize that there's no viewer, there's no doer, there's no seen, and there's no viewer. But viewing process happens, right? So this is exactly what happens in each and every moment. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, when you come to this experience, like right now, experiencing business happens, experiencing process happens. In that experience, sound happens, color happens, smell, taste, touch, think, all these different shapes are appearing in that experience, right? But the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, now you don't have to understand everything, ladies and gentlemen. Just try to listen and try to grasp, and you will understand slowly. When we repeat again and again and again, you will realize this. Don't worry, this is not the end, right? Ladies and gentlemen, this is, because I practice, I have to tell you this. Otherwise, I can say goodbye and do something like basic thing, and we can stop this conversation. I want you to practice as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, if that is the case, you didn't go anywhere. If that is the case, you didn't go point A to B. You haven't moved anything anywhere. Because what actually happens right now, okay, let's do an experiment. Close your eyes, focus on your bodily sensations. Like focus whether you have like you have arms, right? Right, from your arms, right? Did you feel there's an arm? That means that experience, that feeling is actually always generating. It's not generated and gone. It is always give rise to that experiencing of that arm is there. Like experience happens. If you focus that, you will understand this, right? Think about your head, think about your hand. This is what actually happens. There's no hand, but because of the experience, now open your eyes, otherwise you will sleep. I'm afraid of giving you the chance to meditate because right? There's no hand, but there's an experience of hand. But that hand is not the hand that you see, because that seeing moment hand is not the experiencing moment hand, the sensing moment, the tactile sensation hand. So when you see the hand, you can see this hand, right? That seeing process is also an experiencing process that happens, and then you feel the tactile sensation also, right? We collectively say that is this hand. That what you feel is what you see. Actually, it's not, ladies and gentlemen. Because there's no object here. There's an experience, right? Color, sound, taste, smell, touch, thoughts. These are touch actually appear in the mind and process happens. Color appear in the mind, process happens. Is it something done, or always color appears, appear. Appear. Like this is that process that happens.
Yeah.
Seeing is free of object. Even sensing is free of object. Subject also. And then the sensing business is also sensing an object called hand. But that is not there's no hand, because that is the data that describes that sensation. That the data is hollow, insubstantial. Data is like a mirage. Maya. This is what, again, ladies and gentlemen, then you can't say you have moved from A to B. But actually that illusion, there's no glitches, there's no problems. It's perfect trap. You feel you travel here and there, you gone here to there, you have seen people. This whole world wide web of delusion is actually supporting for this delusion. and this deception, and it keep the trapped energy in that trapped. So this is what exactly happens to us. It's not
See,
you are not an entity, ladies and gentlemen. You are not an entity. You can't say you are an individual being, but there's a process of consciousness generates each and every moment. That generation is ignorant about the generation. As a result of that, another process appear. As a result of that, that process start to experience a self. We'll discuss in again in next move session again, like in future. I want you to feel this.
yeah,
I want you to experience this. That's the second part that I want to discuss today. That's why I didn't go to that end. It will be some theories. This is what I did. For example, yesterday. Yes, yesterday. Even day before yesterday, I told the single people on Saturday, Friday night. We were in the kitchen. In the kitchen party, like not party, but we have to cook for 3,000 people came to the monastery, so it's a huge event. So we cooked for 3,000 from 10 p.m. to 12 p.m. in the next day, like almost
midnight.
12 no 16 hours, close to 16, no 14 hours. I was in the kitchen, and then after that we went out and we I had a bath, and then first slept for 3 hours, and then there's a concrete 12-hour concrete for laying for our new building, a school building. So we went there to that whole night. I worked in there until 2 a.m. Right now, only slept for three 3 hours. That previously, right? And then from 2 a.m., after I wash my clothes and everything, the robes, and then I felt like I didn't feel sleep because I was contemplating while I was doing that concrete mixing, and I felt as a result of that, because of the prasada, because of the happiness, because of the inner peace that experiencing, I can't sleep now. What I did, I went to the Chaitya, that means the pagoda area. I started contemplating. In that contemplation, I felt these things. That's why I came here and I explained these things, because you can't actually say you have gone A to B.
Mm.
You can't say I have done this much of this much of this much of these huge work and I did all these things. No, ladies and gentlemen, the story that I told you, that I was working from Friday and until Saturday and Sunday, you feel it's a huge clump, right? You feel, oh my God, that was working a lot. No, that's the illusion that happens, because actually each and every momentary experience doesn't have any history and future. That
Yeah.
is the Pachupannacha. That means the present moment. Present moment doesn't have future and the past and even the present.
It's
Presence.
presence.
That is your consciousness right now.
Yeah.
That consciousness never came, it never will happen again. This is that moment. That's it. 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 You can't say unique, because then you are trying to isolate it, but because you can't isolate as well, because it's a flow as an
Oh,
entity. That's the effect. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, you have no words at all to explain this Nibbana. This is what I feel. Those days, people are in the books. They have, like, they can't depict, they can't illustrate this using words in the books. That's why they have used these magical powers. Buddha had this, water comes out from his ears and fire comes out from the other ear, and all these things are giving some sense that he had shown something that extraordinary. Another the ordinary people can't grasp by looking at him, something like that. That's why all these books are talking about that. In the Buddha, when Buddha was born, like in
Yes.
the Siddhartha, there's a story that lotus, lotus,
Yes, no.
7 lotuses were there. Like the baby Siddhartha walked on 7 lotuses and said, Aggo hamasmi lokasa, jetto hamasmi lokasa, setto hamasmi lokasa, ayamantima natidani punabhavati. So that's a nice story, right? But ladies and gentlemen, sublimely behind that story, there's something unique, Dhamma embedded. That is, it's not 7 lotuses, ladies and gentlemen. Each and every foot that he put, right? The moment that the the moment that foot touches the ground, there was a lotus. And when he take that foot, when you take the next foot to the front, in there, when that foot touch the ground, that foot touches the ground, there's a lotus. And when we take the other foot from the ground, there's no lotus. So that means that lotus means pachupanna, that moment. It manifests in that moment when the foot and the ground touches.
We're just
That is
gonna
the
give it a
moment of consciousness. That is the moment of lotus. Lotus represents the Nibbana. Nibbana happens each and every moment, not in the future. Right now, we have cracked open the Nibbana. Scholar, these scholars, they can't explain this using words, ladies and gentlemen. Somehow, people have to draw a picture about the Buddha using some, extraordinary things. Otherwise, no ordinary person can't recognize he's the Buddha, because in the Buddha's time, when Buddha has enlightened and he walked on the path, the first movement, like after he left the Bodhi tree, there's a person, the Upaka. I remember Upaka, right? He meet the Buddha and he asked, "Who are you?" Then Buddha said, "I am Ananta Jina." "Are you a human being?" "No." "Are you a god?" "No." "Are you a Mara?" "No." "Then who are you?" "I am Anantajina." Then he said, okay, bye. And he went. Imagine if you are the man right now, if you are that person, Anantajina, my goodness, okay, my Lord, now explain to me what you have found. You will say like that because now you know the Buddha's value, right? But the thing is, those people, they even in some occasion, there's another story. Another person who wants to meet the Buddha, he was looking after, he was actually going, he was coming from very far away land, and he wanted to have a rest on a rest house, and then he went there and he stayed there, and at the same day Buddha was also there. Now he doesn't know who is Buddha. He didn't know any idea who is Buddha, and he said to that person, "I'm looking for Buddha." Really? That Buddha didn't say that, he didn't disclose that, right, Buddha? And he answered the questions. And then after that, the questions that he answered, that person realized, my goodness, are you the Buddha? Yes, yes, I am the one who you were searching for. So this is what exactly happened, ladies and gentlemen. Because of this, there are stories to create this concept, right? To draw this picture of a supreme Buddha, using different stories that they have created. But it's fine. We shouldn't say, see, these people are ruining the Dhamma, they have distorted the Dhamma. No, ladies and gentlemen. For a kindergarten, in the kindergarten, you didn't eat pizza, or I don't know, not kindergarten, as a baby, you didn't eat pizza, right? You had what? Some potato and eggs,
Porridge.
like porridge, right? Something like that. So in this path, people who travel from the beginning, we have to feed them from those things. That's fine. But if you are doing a PhD, let's do the PhD. But we don't blame Montessori teacher. So if you are a real PhD holder, you don't blame for any teacher that who you have met along your path. That's why, I mean, so I'll explain again, like in coming weeks. It will have appear in my, like, in these conversations. From this, ladies and gentlemen, we can nicely explain that Jesus, the Bible's saying, it's not I, the Father within me who does this work. We can actually explain, not explain. We need to feel it. We need to see it. Who is this Father? Does this all work?
Thank you so much.
Everyone, I think let's call it.